I believe photographers should shoot what they want, not shoot what they get.
Skill in photography is acquired by practice and not by purchase. Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And we are up to episode 210 episodes, 210, 210, count them on many fingers and toes and stuff. Sorry, I got a Mr. Softy machine
West,
going
west,
outside.
Southwest, I think. If you
Southwest, yeah. 210. Oh, that's right. Your degrees, 210. Yeah, 10 episodes since our 200th episode. That's cool. Anyway, okay. I'm going to go off the deep end tonight, so just be prepared. For those of you who are not into that, you can fast forward to when Ward speaks.
Okay.
Maybe we can get AI to just mute me.
It's a bit coming on, an angry bit.
An angry bit coming on. Well, anyway, let's listen. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Things are going well for me, and it's been good. I got out and did some street photography on the weekend. On Sunday, it was a very warm day. Yeah, it was.
Where'd you go?
I just started. I went to the downtown area, my old where I used to work down there, and walked up and down. And it's largely tourist traffic and some locals taking in the restaurants and walking around doing some shopping. And then I went down to 17th Avenue, which is kind of our restaurant drag. They call it Uptown 17, whatever.
Oh.
And so it was a nice little walk. Got a few miles of walking in and some color photography. Oh my goodness!
Right? Yeah, we're going to talk about that, but I've been seeing you doing more color these days.
It's just a phase. I'm sure I'll go back.
Go back to that. All right, cool. Yeah, I've been thinking of. I was in the city a couple of weekends ago with my friend Geraldine. We met on a Saturday. I don't really go into New York City that often, and we were going to go to a pen store in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And because she's getting into fountain pens too, so I'm like, it's a really cool store. It's a lot of Japanese and South Korean, and I don't think a Chinese pens there, but it's more Japanese based stationery and pens. But to get there is kind of convoluted with the trains, and so instead of I want to get a pen. I want to buy a pen. She was on her way to France in like a day or two after that. So.
Okay.
I said, well, instead of going there because it's convoluted, let's go to downtown New York in Soho, and we'll meet for lunch, and then we'll go to the Lamy store. There's a Lamy flagship store. For those of you who don't know Lamy is fountain pen maker based in Germany, now owned by Mitsubishi Paper or something like that. Sorry, I know too much about these things. I'm going to join the dull men's club. But I was walking around the city. I got off the train early, and I had brought my GFX with me, and I was going to do some street photography with that, which is not very easy to do.
Well, I tease you about that. You're going to carry this giant football thing all around to take pictures.
And I had the 80 millimeter lens on it because I had the autofocus lens, and I was just like, I guess because I also wanted to show it to her because she was going to bring her Leica Q3.
Oh man,
she's not a show off. That's just a camera that she felt was really her, that fit like her style of shooting and whatnot. And it is a really nice camera. So
they're beautiful.
Yeah. So before I got out early, before I was supposed to meet her, and I was walking around, and I was like, I just really need to come into the city, sort of like what you did, your version of it on a weekend, because I was meeting on our Saturday. Weekends now in the you were here. Well, you were here in off season, but the weekends are just incredible with people. And I was like, you know what? There's just a lot of things to shoot streetwise. And if I came in with my X100, I, could have a blast for like an hour or two, like we did when we walked around. So I'm kind of itching to do that. I can feel that bug coming back into me, the street shooting bug. as it were. I mean, I know it went away for a while, but I've been looking at your stuff. I've been seeing other people's pictures, black and white stuff in urban environments, and I've just been like, oh yeah, I can do that too. Go in with try doing street photography with a really wide lens, like a 28 or 24 equivalent.
Anything to mix
see
it
if
up,
I can
it's all
start.
good.
Yeah, and see if I can start working on the multiple, like the where the frame. There's a lot of stuff going on in the frame. I really want to practice that. So anyway, where was I going with this? I can't remember where I was going with it. Shooting, whatever. Anyway, so but yeah, I've been doing a lot of. I haven't been doing a lot of shooting. I've been doing a lot of teaching lately. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know. It's warm. We had early August here, and today, actually yesterday, in the past couple of days, actually the Saturday I met Geraldine. Actually, it was just this past Saturday. No, it wasn't. It was 2 Saturdays ago. It was beautiful. It was like I couldn't believe how nice it was. It was like I don't know how you feel when you like go out and the weather's like incredibly nice. If it just like adds to some excitement that you have. I don't know what it's like it's like the air is full of some sort of drug and you're like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
There's a breeze and there's clouds and stuff like that. I had a street photography class a couple of weekends ago also at a new library that I'm teaching, and it was one of those days, and I was like I was like, I'm going out and shooting. Usually with my street photography class I send them out to go and shoot and then I stay behind. I'm like, nope, I'm going out. Because it was a new location too, so I went out and I was like, "That was beautiful." So shot with my Instax camera. Cool. So yeah, yeah, this is going to be one of those episodes where I'm going to be kind of I know you've got something to talk about. It's very definite, so that's great. So your half when it comes up, I'm going to be a little bit of like squirrel.
We're going to be a little unstructured, are we?
A little unstructured, yeah. We had such a good episode Our last episode with Jeffrey Saldinger. That was great. I held on to that conversation. And Jeffrey, thank you for being on the show and thank you for being a listener. It was really, really a great experience, and it's like been sitting with me for a while. And yes, we're not far away from each other in terms of like how the crow flies. So hopefully, Jeffrey, we'll figure out some opportunity. I'd like to figure out an opportunity to meet you in the real world. And talk more, but that was a really great chat.
I've played it back 2 or 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Like his pictures. I want to make sure I absorb everything,
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. His thinking about his work and incorporating like my thought process into how I'm shooting. Like that's what I'm kind of like, to be influenced by somebody who's on our show so directly is really is exciting for me. So I actually I can't remember if I mentioned this during our recording, but I probably did. But I bring his book with me to my classes, sometimes my street photography classes. I'm kind of like I don't want a lot of people touching it, just because like making sure everybody's hands are not full of ice cream and stuff like that, so I don't want to ruin them. So I kind of gauge, like I look at the audience, I say, okay, they look okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll take it out. But I just brought it with me. And I brought your book too, yours and Mark's book with me to my zine making class that I just had on Saturday at the library. And even though it's not a zine, I bring them to show about pacing of and layouts of, trying to tell a narrative with pictures. Because basically I'm saying sometimes a zine is kind of just a small photo book. So, try to think in these terms as well. I don't have enough zines on me to show with, to show. So I need to buy more zines, which actually, I don't know if we talked about you received your zines from the,
yeah, we talked about it in a recommendation, Cafe Royal.
Yeah. Did we talk about it on here that,
I believe we did. We made it a recommendation. Yeah, it was a recommendation.
Right, but did you already have the books then when you were talking about it? Or did you
maybe not. Yeah, they received them 2 weeks ago. Maybe we just missed.
I think we
it was
missed
the show before Jeffrey. I think we talked about.
Yeah,
it,
so no, you had gotten them between
in
we
between
hadn't
those
talked about.
shows. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about what you got, but you received them.
Yeah.
So let me know what were they like?
They're amazing.
Really? Okay.
They're most of the pictures are full bleed, so they go right to the edges, but it's fine. They're very like the lion's share of his archive there is pictures from the UK and Ireland and Northern Ireland. So there's a lot of history, a lot of 50s, 60s, 70s there. And also I ordered one that was from an American photographer out of New York, from your neighborhood, taking pictures around Coney Island and Brooklyn Bridge. They're great, mostly black and white. One picture that was about Salford in the UK. It was in color. And it was interesting to see those color pictures from the 60s. They look like they might have been from slides. So the pictures or the colors were quite vivid. And they were £6.40, I think, each, 32 pages.
So they were pounds, not euros.
They were pounds. I said in the original episode, that they were euros.
So they're a little bit
pounds.
more expensive, but still not unreasonably expensive.
No, he has something. He has over 1,000 of them available. So,
what's the name of the website again?
Cafe Royal.
Cafe Royal
Press. Yeah,
or something like that. Yeah, I'll put them in the show notes again since we're talking about it. But it's 2 episodes ago that we were talking about this. But I suggested that place to my zine students. Not only Etsy. I think Etsy is a good place to find zines, but this place that you talked about. And I think I need to order some of the books too. I might do that in the next couple of days or something, so I can have.
Just spend some time, just because if I'm not mistaken, he on the website you can see all the pictures that are in the zine as well, so you can make up for your own mind what you want to have arrive at your doorstep. Good.
So no big surprises.
It's very it's great. Well, I'm all for surprises. I don't mind if
that's true.
Surprises.
Yeah, but I mean, if you went to a magazine store or a bookstore, you would be flipping through it and decide to buy it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like that ability too. I am not a big fan of buying a book without seeing what's inside of it a little bit. I just feel like I've taken some chances and I've gotten some stuff I don't like. But yeah, cool. £6.80 translates to whatever in your local currency. It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, and the shipping for 3 of them, because I ordered 3, was £5.50.
Oh,
on top of that.
All right.
And that was, I think, that was just Royal Mail. That was mail. That wasn't courier. So
it just comes when it comes. Oh, that's great. Okay, great.
It was not even 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, good recommendation. And, I want to buy more zines, if not for myself. I mean, just because I love these things, but also to share with people I know in my classes and stuff. So cool. So let me go into my ranting.
Okay.
Fast forward.
Rant on.
Not rants. I got a bunch of stuff. Like I said, I haven't been shooting so much lately. I mean, I bring my camera with me to breakfast. I've been carrying around again, actually taking out of not retirement, but sort of taking out of the closet, dusting off my X100F, because like I'm going to a coffee shop and I'm bringing a lot of writing materials with me. So I want to travel light, but I'm not doing a lot of walking around with it, like going around my neighborhood and stuff. And so I've just looked at my X100's roll and I realized that I've got pictures from April that I still have yet to take off the camera. So if any of my students are listening to this, don't do as I do. Yeah. Don't do as I do. Don't leave them on the camera for that long. I mean, really, I just need to sit here and pop them into my Lightroom catalog. So, but I've been doing a lot of classes for Brick in the library, so I've been tweaking them and just nervous about them. I finished a Lightroom class. Oh, today's Tuesday, right? So I finished a Lightroom class last night. It was a 2-parter, which still needs some tweaks, but as one rant, I had like 6 people show up for the first class, and then only 3 people showed up for the second class. So I try not to take that personally, because I don't know why people don't show up. But
it's not a free class, right? They're paying for it, right?
No, it's $40, right? So it's $20 for thing. So I mean, I have to imagine that it couldn't be because they didn't like me, because $20. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. But I am tweaking the class a little. Again, as I run through the classes, I have to tweak it. But it's a little frustrating, because it's not like my other classes where I'm up and being my personality. I'm teaching a program, and that's a lot different than teaching photography or getting excited by history and going out and shooting. So, but yeah, I'm developing some other classes, more to do with fountain pens and writing. But like the photojournaling class is getting a lot of thumbs up from people. Yeah. And I've even incorporated some information about that into, my mobile phone photography class, which is kind of online, but again, to try to tell people, hey, look at pictures. You want to make your photography better, even with a smartphone, look at other people's pictures. So, so that's not quite a rant, but that's kind of where I'm at. The other thing that is going on, we've talked about this until we're blue in the face, but I'm becoming more and more dismayed at the rise of AI, and especially, even though I use it, especially in Lightroom. Have you used the new Lightroom generative
to
fill?
remove objects?
But you've used it. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
I've used it. Well, the generative, I haven't done anything with clouds or anything like that, because I've been fortunate. The skies have been quite dramatic. Where I've been shooting.
I thought you were talking about the Adobe's cloud.
No, sorry.
You're talking about clouds, like real clouds.
Cloud.
Okay.
No, clouds, filling in, I use it just to remove objects that are distracting, power lines and things like that.
Yeah.
I use that. I like the smart removal tool.
I like it too. And again, it presses some buttons. I mean, because I use it, and I can imagine if you were a retoucher, it's, you can do so much now. You can do so much more in Lightroom. If you were even just doing people retouching, you could do a lot, not have to leave it. Although Photoshop seems still to be better for that. Mm-hmm. But the ease at it. Like I was working on a picture just today, and it was on my phone too, because you have the generative fill on the phone version of Lightroom CC. Well, it's not Lightroom CC, but just Lightroom. And I was removing some wires from a sign that was on the wall at Brick. It was a kind of cool sign, and there was a fire alarm at the top. And I was like, "Oh, let me just use the generative fill so I could just get the sign." And I was like, it's not reality. It's not what I took a picture of, and I know this. And if I didn't have generative fill, I probably wouldn't have cloned it out. I might have just left it in because that was the picture I took. But it was like, well, let me, that temptation, like the little AI demon devil on my shoulder saying, just use me. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know where to go with this. I mean, I know we talked about this a year ago about AI, and I don't think we were at this point. And I don't want to go into this deep dive about it because it's talked to death, but there is just something about it that's bringing me down a little. And I think it's because it's really eating into the business of photography faster than I don't know. I think if we went back to the last year and listened to the show, I think I said a certain amount of time, but I didn't think back then I would feel the way I do now,
well, you're seeing it and feeling it and being able to use it. So
yeah,
that'll change your perception.
Yeah, and then seeing how other people are reacting to it, and the whole, I don't know. So there's something about it that is just bumming me out, and I'm not saying that's the cause of my summer doldrums, but it's in that pile a little bit, and I don't know. Anyway, I won't go too much into it because I'm not quite settled on how I feel about it. I just know I'm now on the side of like, I'm not, I can see where it's going to be helping, but I think that's going to be hurting more than it's going to be helping. And we're still not at that level yet where we're going to see the final results, like how many photographers or media makers, once the video starts coming out, video quality, it's like how many people are going to really like, how is it going to really impact them? Like, are people going to be losing jobs? Are studios going to close down? Caterers going to do this? Or models going to, like, all this? Like, is it starting to happen? So, maybe in another year we'll talk about it or something like that. Maybe sooner, given the way things are going. But
things are moving pretty quick, man.
Yeah. The other thing is, I did put in an order when it was announced for that Fujifilm X100 VI.
Nice.
I'm not going to call it a 106. By the way, I know there's a lot of people going, is it a 6 or is it VI? It's VI because all the way up until the last X100, they didn't call it the X105 or the X104 or the X103. Right. It was the F, it was the T, it was the V, it was the S, right? So it's the VI, right? Not the 6. So whenever you people are listening to this, you're full of it.
Wow.
I told you I'm in a ranty mode.
Man, it took a turn. The show took a turn.
I'm hot and sweaty, right? This is New York. This is like, anyway, it's hot and sweaty again. And because I have to close the window when we do our show. So yeah, I put the order in when it was announced, and they're nowhere to be found these days. And I keep seeing, I'm on a Facebook group. There's people who are it's an X100, and everybody's, oh, I just got mine today, and I pre-ordered it the same day. And I was like, yeah, well, where's mine? So it's not bothering me that much because I've got cameras that keep me, happy. So I'm not really going crazy about it, but it is kind of, I heard rumors that like I didn't get an announcement yet, but it's possible I might get mine in September.
I was hoping you get it for the summer photography season, but
well, then it's the fall season, but I'll probably
That's right. You have lovely falls there, unlike here.
Yeah. I'll probably sell the, as I really don't want 2 of these things. So the X100F, which is a really nice camera, by the way, I'll probably I'm going to get rid of that so that, trying to get rid of cameras these days. But it is, they're making, I heard, $15,000 a month, and they just can't keep up. So whatever. But that adds to my, like, I kind of want it. Like, I do want to shoot.
It's got the better lens and the high resolution, right?
Yeah. I can crop it a little bit, and I might want to get some sort of I might get the wide angle adapter for it. So it'll go a little wider. Well, let's see. What else? What else am I going to go? I'm just looking at my list of the rant. Oh, so yeah, this will be the last rant. I promise that we'll go right to what you're talking about, because I want to talk about gear. But because I'm a teacher, right? And I teach a lot of beginners, right? For I do the 3-hour intro to digital photography, which is a ridiculous name. I named it, but it's it resonates with people looking for it. So I've got to introduce them to the basics of photography, the shutter speed, aperture, the exposure nonsense. I don't do the exposure triangle, and I'll come into that for a second, but like all the basic stuff. And I try to give them some resources so that they're, even though they're only there for 3 hours, they can follow up. And I put some books from Amazon on the list, and even a bunch of little prompt cards that I found someplace, so they can have those, for making images and stuff like that. But, I was thinking like maybe I should make a photography cheat sheet for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been, if you do a search for photography cheat sheets and, Google or Pinterest or something like that, you get, hundreds of them. And I was looking at them because I was thinking like, hey, well, maybe I could just look at some of these and pattern after this. And I was like, none of these make any sense whatsoever. I don't know if you've noticed.
And one's even called Making Sense of F-Stops.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. All right. They're making sense of the speed scale. So I'm imagining myself, right? Like learning photography for the first time. And, I went to school and you had books to read and stuff like that. And I was looking at these and I said, would I understand anything if I was a brand new photographer and I had to look at these cheat sheets and try to figure out what they mean relative to me trying to move my photography forward and learn? And I was like, no effing way. Like there's some part of me that looks like, no matter how cute the icons are, how many little arrows point in this direction and that direction, fuzzy, out of focus, graphics of a tree to show depth of field. Like some of these things just don't make sense to me. And I would be remiss to give a brand new student one of these things and say, well, here's your cheat sheet, right? Interpret what I told you in my class from this sheet, right? And, you know, so I was trying to look, and it's like, no, there's no way. I'm looking at one here, like when to increase your ISO. And I'm not going to post these because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But the picture is a sun with waves and an arrow, right? Talking about a signal, right? And it says strong sunlight, and this bright light produces a strong signal. And this doesn't need amplifying, so the ISO can be left at the lowest setting. And then I'm like, what? Strong light produces a strong signal that doesn't need to be amplified. Okay, fine. So
the camera's an amplifier. It's not, well,
yeah,
it is, but it's a bad metaphor. Wow.
Oh, it is. And then, trying to make sense of the exposure triangle too. Like I actually tried to one day make an animation of an exposure triangle and show like, shifting values on the triangle. And it didn't work because it's not a triangle.
Yeah.
Right. It's just someone wrote, let's see if I can say it's if I can find what the wording that he said. Oh, I don't know. It's like the only thing that aperture, shutter speed, and ISO have to do with a triangle is threeness. Right? And so when I also talk to my students, I say, you're going to hear something about something that's called the exposure triangle. I said, just ignore it, right? Because I don't want to confuse you anymore. It's just these three things are, help you dealing with an exposure. And I have to describe what exposure is and aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, but pay no attention to anything about exposure triangle. So I found some funny sites that were making fun of exposure triangles and why cheat sheets are bad ideas. And maybe they'll put those in the show notes so you can read them. They're kind of informative and funny. And, maybe our audience is not quite at that, but, it's kind of useful if anybody in our audience teaches other people photography or shows them. And anyway, I thought it was fun, but I was really just sort of blown away by how bad these things are and how confusing they are. So I don't know if you have any comment about this, but
I have a comment, and
yes,
it goes back to my Time Life Library of Photography, the volume called Light and Film. The metaphor they used was a faucet, a tap, and a beaker at the bottom of the underneath, and you open the tap for a duration that represents your shutter speed. You open the tap to a certain opening, that's your aperture. And then how long it takes to fill the beaker, the size of the beaker is the speed of the film. So the smaller the beaker, the faster the film. And then
that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So you could have it open a quarter of the way and it takes 10 seconds to fill, or you can open it all the way and it takes, 2.5 seconds to fill. Right. So it's the same, that metaphor works. And that I learned that early. I learned that when I was 11. What I tripped over was the fractional aspect of the numbers on the camera. Yeah. What you're looking at are fractions. It's not 1,000 seconds. It's 1/1000th of a second. It's not,
right.
It's not f2 and it's 1/2 of the focal length. So you have to get that over. You got to get that through your head, and that takes a while. And that's the hardest part, is understanding what those numbers are.
Yeah.
And but the actual metaphor is the faucet, is the tap, is the how much you open the tap and how long you let the tap run. And that's
it's funny that you said that, because I didn't know that was in those books. And in my intro to digital photography show, after I talk about exposure, and I do a little teeter-totter thing, just to show how the relationship of a shutter, one setting is equal to an aperture, another setting. If you if you change one in one direction, you have to change the other in the other direction to get the same exposure. But then I say, I put up a slide with a faucet.
Yeah.
And the faucet is representative of the camera, but it's actually a faucet. And then the shutter is the spigot, right? And the aperture, I've done something a little bit different. I don't know if it makes sense, but the aperture would be the width of the pipe.
Right.
And the sensor is a bucket. And if the bucket, if you don't fill the bucket all the way, that's an underexposed picture. If you overflow the bucket, that's an overexposed picture. But if you fill the bucket just right, that's the right exposure. And I throw that on there because for the exact same reason as it's all this stuff that's complex. I don't talk about I do talk about the fractions of shutter speeds. I say these numbers are actually a fraction. I don't tell them about aperture because that gets I would say for a beginning it's a little confusing.
Well, it's easier to grasp shutter speeds as the higher number is more fast, as speed is
right.
But when it's apertures, it's like, how come the bigger number isn't a bigger?
Yeah, I just tell them. I always say just like there's two things in photography where the numbers mean opposites, right? Shutter speed and aperture, and then I don't describe to them aperture because it's almost no point in telling them that it's a fraction of the lens focal length because that's just a geeky thing.
It's theory,
theory, So like the practical part of aperture is like, well, if you set the number to this, you're going to get less light. If you set it into that, you're going to get more light. Or if you set it to this, you're going to get, a blurrier background. If you set it to, so try to keep it simple. So anyway, I'm still sort of left here thinking about like, how would I make my own sort of photography cheat sheet? So that might be a project I work on because I would love to do that and do it in a way that makes sense and not this like little scale that, I don't know. The stuff I've seen just made me crazy. So anyway, I guess that wasn't such a bad rant. I hope not. You can finally tell us what I don't know how many people are sitting there hanging on the edge of their seat.
None.
Listening to this podcast saying
zero care.
What camera did he get? He's held onto this for at least what? It's 2 or 3 episodes.
Three, I guess 6 weeks, something like that.
Everybody's like, they don't really care.
No, they don't care.
They don't care. But okay, so now you can tell us, right? Let's hear your tell me, you talk.
So I think right now it is the most cost effective, the cheapest Fujifilm camera you can buy. It's the XS20. So
yay.
Yeah. And the reason why I got it was primarily because I shoot stills and it's got all this blogging capability and it's got fancy, the flippy screen and everything, which I love because I can fold the screen into the camera and I can treat it. I can adjust all my menus and stuff using the viewfinder instead
so you don't have
of
to look at the screen again.
Right. Yeah. So, and I like that. I like that abstraction. So I don't have to, when I'm chimping, I'm looking through the camera. I'm not looking at the back of the camera.
That's the one thing can you do with that camera is review the pictures through the viewfinder? Or do you have to review them on the screen? You can do them through the viewfinder.
And then when you use the I say motor drive, but the continuous shooting, if you hold the joystick over while you're viewing it, you get to watch the little movie. It's like you're looking in a, looking in a
12 frame a second film. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, congratulations.
Well, it's got the latest processor and it's got the 26 megapixel sensor, which I don't need no 40 or no 50 or no 100 like certain people I know. And
I don't need it. I just want it.
You just want it. Yeah. Cause I'm not a rich guy and I like to conserve my storage. So when you start upping the size of your files, it gets to be a lot to not just store, but also to back up.
Yeah.
So it's that. And the reason why I got it when I got it was primarily, while it was available, it was back ordered as well, like your X100. And so I got the call from the camera store and said, "Oh, we got it here." And like, "Oh, can we put it off a week?" "Well, we've only got X number of them and they're going to go." So I go, "Okay, I'll come down to the store and pick it up." So, it's funny. You dream about getting these things and then the time comes, you're like, "Oh, yeah, it's not going to wait to payday." I'm like, yeah, that's all right. You put it on the credit card, pay it off. You'll be fine.
Did you get it with a lens? Or
no, I got enough lenses for all my street stuff for my Fuji gear. I have 2 XE3s already, plus 3 Fuji lenses, the 23, 50, and the 16. The 23 and the 50 are the f2, and the 16 is the 1.4, which is oh gosh, again, I love that lens. So I
catch all
got
you
it
want.
in time for Handtails Lake Stampede, which is the rodeo that I go to either at the end of May or the beginning of June, where my extended family has been involved in it, and my ancestors have been involved with that particular rodeo in East Central Alberta since it opened.
Is this the one you did the book for or not?
This is the one Mark and I did the book for.
Okay, this is the book one, right? There's 2 Stampedes that you go to.
That I go to, yes. There's that one, and then there's the Calgary Stampede, which is like a big state fair.
Gotcha.
Which is just south of downtown in Calgary. And those pictures, I don't shoot the animals and the competitors. I shoot, well, the other animals, the people walking the midway,
right?
Which is an intense street shooting experience, walking the midway up and down every year.
We got that figured out. Fantastic.
Okay.
So XS20. Buy an extra battery?
I did. I bought an extra battery, and I was very impressed, as the kids would say. I got over, and I was not using boost mode because I find I didn't need to use boost mode, which I thought would suck battery. Have you tried using boost mode? I had not tried using boost mode. I didn't need it in the continuous shooting modes. It was fine. Yes, the image jitters a little bit, but for the kind of action that I was shooting, it was not a problem at all.
My suggestion, if I may, and sorry for anybody who's not a Fuji person, leave it in burst mode.
All right.
Boost, not boost.
Okay.
Yeah. You will find that it will perform, if it's like any of the other cameras that I've got that have the boost mode, it performs much, much better. And it sounds like you had a good example of it, but just try it with it on.
All right.
And like leave it on. It doesn't really use that much more battery power.
Okay. Particularly now, another thing about the XS20 has a larger battery.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. You'll be able to go all day with that thing. But
I did.
Yeah,
I went over a day. I went a day and a half with the first.
But you have an extra battery now, so throwing it in boost mode will get there's things about it. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Cool.
Mr. Smarty Pants over here.
No, that's fine.
Everything.
So, what was I going to say? Oh, so I go to the Stampede. I was just kind of setting the stage for like actually going there. So I've been going there since I was a little kid. It's my first kind of big annual photo project thing that I do every year. So it kind of wakes me up completely from the sleepiness of winter and the cold Canadian whatever, right? And I'm walking around there, I'm getting back into using the equipment. I usually rent a lens, and then this year was no different. I get the Fuji 50 to 140, which I put on the XS20, and it was on there the whole time. I didn't take it off.
That's a full frame equivalent of a 70 to 200, I think, right?
Yeah.
Good lens, really good lens.
Yeah, absolutely. With that camera, with IBIS and optical image stabilization together, and me shooting. Oh, of course, I had pretty high shutter speeds when I was shooting, but it was that lens was really good, and so that was great. I didn't really shoot much air film. I didn't play around with it in the house like some people do, before I go do the big assignment. So I was learning the camera as I was shooting my rodeo pictures, which is...
So everybody who's listening to the show, don't do as we do. Do as we say. Learn your camera before you go out on a job.
I am 10 years into the Fuji system. No, I'm 10 years into the Fuji system, and I did memorize as much of the I'm that nerd. I have a copy of the manual PDF on my phone, and I'm like, oh, wait a sec. What if I wanted to do this? And I programmed.
So you're doing this before you had the camera.
Yeah.
So you knew
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're definitely a nerd.
Because I knew because I ordered it, and I'm like, oh, how do I do this? And then what if I want to, whatever. It's a little bit different than the XE3, so it has a whole bunch of performance
It's kind of like having your camera before you actually get it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had the control wheels set the way I wanted, and I had, I had, so I could change autofocus modes or drive modes or that sort of thing. So that part was not a problem. I'm having trouble. I'm kind of tripping over the front control wheel, which is not clickable on my XE3. They're clickable so I can do settings of ISO or whatever. I ended up not using the front control wheel as much as I did on my do on my street cameras, but it's not that much of a hardship. And I did order a grip, sort of. It's not really you could call it a grip, I suppose. It's the small rig bracket to go under to give it a bit more depth at the bottom, so my little finger doesn't trip off the bottom of it, because it's a very small camera, which is a blessing and maybe a little bit of a curse when you have a bigger lens on it. But the balance I didn't find was any problem at all shooting sports. And you do have to, depending on the sport, you have to swing the lens back and forth rather rapidly. So in my experience shooting auto racing, where I'm often on a monopod, I swing on the monopod. And when I'm shooting, I'm poking the camera through a fence and I can kind of swing in the middle. So my head is moving around. It's just, it's whatever. So I didn't have to like move the mass of the lens. I could just pivot in place when I was panning, shooting the animals, whatever, the competitors.
So what was it like using your new camera, but in like a place that you've been before?
It was fine. I mean, I'm used to the way that your viewfinder looks. The only thing, like I said, with my right hand is where the shutter release and the front control wheel. But I did have occasion to use shutter mode, which I never use on the street, shutter priority, and manual.
Well, you're shooting action. You're shooting some action.
Yeah, I'm shooting, but I would just pick an aperture where I knew the shutter speed would be fast enough. Now I'm like, no, I'll pick 2,000th of a second and let the ISO float, and then pick an aperture is going to work.
Sorry, I'm going to ask you this as well. You know, your XE3s are more rangefinders, so your eye is off to the left side of the camera. This camera is centered. How did that affect it? It sounds like you haven't used a DSLR style camera in a while, because you've been using
my Canon 7D that I shot for the book was the last time I was there with the camera that had a viewfinder in the middle.
You've been a while like in a rangefinder style.
So
I found that throws me off a little bit, because I'm a left eye person, so oh, you are?
I'm left eye. So
you were messed up anyway, right? Because
I was messed up, my nose pressed up against, because I could never use not that I was ever a big fan of the touchscreen on the back of the Fujis, but I always disabled it. And that's the first thing I do is I disable the touchscreen.
Yeah.
But no, it was better. It was better because I can turn my head and press my face against the back of the camera, which is what I used to do in SLR days. Also, because I wear glasses, people are complaining that the magnification is not the greatest on that camera, but it's good for me because I have longer eye relief. I'm further away from the viewfinder, so I can't get as close as your average bear. So I could see the whole viewfinder looking through my glasses and being a little bit further away. And that was another like feature that I didn't expect, was like, oh, good, we've got less magnification, so I don't have to worry so much with my glasses on.
Those viewfinder, I can't use my glasses because I have progressives, and and like you tilt your head. If I tilt my head one bit away, like all of a sudden I got to change the diopter again, and I just have to shoot without my glasses, which is a real pain in the butt because I got to put my glasses back on to look at the pictures. But are you're not? And so go ahead.
So the original question there was like, what was it like? So the distracting part was all of these new features of the camera, properties of the camera that I had never really used before since my Canon gear. And it's faster. Like, I found that I didn't have to do much more than 4 frames a second for the continuous shooting. Just the nature of the competition, I could kind of figure it out. What I did do too was, like a golf swing, I would just follow through. I would watch the main action. I'd shoot the main action, and then I'd watch the horsey run away. And like, I was not going to use any of those pictures of the horse running away. I just wanted the peak of action when the horse is actually going around the barrel. So that was like, Ward, you don't need. So there was quite a few frames actually that I know I'm not going to use. I really like the autofocus performance of that face detect or whatever, even on a further subject. it kept the competitor's face in focus, and with the jumping stock and the saddle bronc and the bareback and the bull riding, where there's a lot of thrashing around and the poor guy's head is like bobbing around in the frame, and it was keeping it. It was, I could see the square over top of the guy. So I didn't do animal detect because
that would throw things.
That would well, it would, the animal's eyes would be in focus, and the cowboy could conceivably be out of focus. So that part was good.
So but what sounds like sorry, go ahead.
No, it
sounds
was
like
just
a good
like,
review. Yeah.
Oh, it is absolutely. And I had shot speed skating a couple of times last year and the year before. I had rented an XT3 with that lens, that 50-140, and it was really not very good sports camera at all. And I ended up pre-focusing like I was like I had
the old days. Like an animal days. like
some
a barbarian.
It's like some guy from before the war. You pre-focus and the skater's going to be right there, and you hit the shutter when the skater is right there.
Good luck with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was like not that. It was like I could concentrate on my composition way more. And it did led me down a couple of rabbit holes. One was because I could zoom in more and try and keep the animal in frame. I ended up kind of taking away the environment that the ride was taking place in, which I kind of regret now. That's okay. I'll fix that the next year when I go. I'll like back out a little bit. That was one thing. Also, too, it gave me, I was able to shoot manually. That was the other thing I was starting to say, was front and back control dials. I could just kind of move around and do whatever. I could shoot manually, and that was fantastic too. So shutter priority.
Can we take a side trip for just a minute?
Sure.
Let's not go too deep down this, but as you're describing this, I'm realizing, you've got this new piece of gear, and you're in this familiar place that you're shooting, and it's giving you some abilities that it sounds like you didn't have before.
Right. Yeah.
And how speak to the idea of, is this being an example of where the equipment matters in some way? Like it's augmenting something that you already have. You know what I mean? Like, we often talk about that, and people say, equipment doesn't matter, camera doesn't matter. Well, true in some sense, and not true. Like it will do something for you, for the person, for the seasoned photographer. It opens up new doorways, right? Or something like that. So just speak to that for like a little bit. I don't want to go too far.
Yeah. So I wrote a blog post like 8 years ago on my own website, which I think there are only like 3 blog entries there, where I talked about what's your trigger to buy new gear. And one is if you're up against the wall and there's something you want to do that gear solves the problem for you, then go ahead and buy it instead of just buying it because you like the look of it. So I kind of like the way I'd been buying gear since I got rid of my Canon stuff. I've been only buying stuff as I need it. And when I shot with the Canon and we did the book and then I got rid of it and went into Fujiland, I kind of gave up all that sport capability that I had. And the last couple of years shooting the rodeo, I'm like, I'd rent that 50-140 and I'd put it on my XE3 and it was just horrible.
Okay.
Hey, I had to try it. So it's like, I want to get back into sports, and I have plans to go to an auto race in January next year. So I'd like to have some gear that's going to allow me to give me some of the capability I had when I had my Canon stuff. So this was part of that.
You've been able to take what you've done and your skill, and you said, I'm not saying hit a wall, but like you can now go further with this new device. And it's interesting about, like, for people who are just starting off, is like, how do they know when they hit a wall? You know what I mean? Like, how do they know at what point they need a new piece of gear or something like that? And we don't have to answer that now. It's just, but I sort of throw that out into the world because, people want to, I got to get this camera because so-and-so told me I have to get this camera and I have to get this lens. It's like, well, no. But then how do you know when it's time to get that camera in that lens.
Well,
so.
for me, it's just if there's something you really want to do and you can't with the gear that you have.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the simplest, the oversimplified version of it.
It is. All right. Okay.
And the thing is, the XS20 made all of that possible, even without boost mode, right? So I really enjoyed that.
Okay, don't go into boost mode.
Sorry, I'm arguing. I don't even know. I didn't even turn it on. I just wanted to save battery because I'm out there. We only run the generator for an hour because we were camping, and I only run the generator for about an hour and a half, and that's not long enough to charge everything. So I wanted to kind of preserve that. As it turned out, I didn't really need to worry.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Just go into boost mode. All right. So continue. Let's go down the path a little bit more. So yeah, and we have these lunatics outside. You hear that?
No,
yeah,
I don't hear.
This is New York is getting worse, by the way. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. I'm done with ranting.
It's all right.
This is happiness now. Happiness.
Okay, happiness. Yeah. So I decided last year I wanted to go, after thinking I was going to do all this arty kind of a continuation, whatever you want to call it, of the book, and this black and white pictures of close-ups of the competitors and the animals and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of not really hitting a brick wall, but not really finding any kind of satisfying, I don't know, number of images that worked. I know there were a couple of, a bull rider who was thrown to the ground, and the picture that I took was the immediate aftermath of that, with the bull jumping away and the bull rider like face down on the ground with the dust still rising because he's just impacted the ground. Those are the kind of pictures that I wanted to do, but they were few and far between. And in terms of pushing along a kind of a creative stream, there wasn't really enough there. So I thought this year with this new camera, I would go back into just shooting straight up action, just to go back to, run home to mama, whatever, and just do something that I knew I could do, and that I understood the sport well enough that I could make some striking images, just, I won't say without really trying, but having those reflexes, those chops, and building them up and being able to produce something that might be interesting. At the same time, in the back of my mind, thinking, oh, I really like my arty black and white pictures. And this whole weekend, there's not going to be there. But I did discover a couple of things.
Sorry, is it really one or the other that you have to do? I guess you have to get in a certain mindset?
Yeah, so
okay.
Let's take, for example, barrel racing, that particular sport. So where I camp out by the fence, I'm on the outside of the arena, and there's a barrel set up about 10 feet or 12 feet away from the fence where I'm at. So I can just poke the lens in, and the horse comes around with the rider on it, kind of like a figure eight, has to ride around the barrel. There are 3 barrels. There's do this kind of triangle figure eight pattern around these barrels. So the barrel that I'm at is usually the barrel that the competitors go around first. And the XS20 with the long lens on it, the focal length is too long because they're too close. So I'd use the XE3 with the 23 millimeter, and it was great because I set it to 2,000th of a second, and I don't care, it's still mechanical shutter, so there's no issues with rolling shutter or anything like that. So what I'd do is I'd have both cameras around not around my neck, the XS20's in the bag beside me, and I take the picture of the competitor going around the barrel close with my street camera, and then I change cameras, and then when she's going to the second barrel, I shoot with the long lens. And I did this for every competitor for the ones that I was set up for. And it was nice to go back and forth and not have to worry about, I was still shooting action with my street camera. And one of my arty pictures I got out of it was from that effort. Yeah. So there was that. And then in the evenings, there are these dances. It's like a barn dance. There's a semi-trailer that's got a fancy electronic stage where the bands come and play. And the people who dance, they actually dance on the ground, on the grass in front of the semi, or not in front of the semi, in front of the stage. And then there's this giant, like a marquee tent, beer garden thing that's behind it. And so people come out to dance and whatever, and there's all these lights and stuff. And so you have this kind of atmosphere, this kind of like dance floor cabaret atmosphere going on. And so I have my street camera and I'm like, I'm going to shoot this. I'm going to shoot the people dancing. And then I thought was a really nice picture of the people dancing. That was kind of arty. That was like a kind of a American documentary style kind of image of, you know, Western culture. And so the lesson for me is in this, or the epiphany in the last couple of weeks thinking about this was, yes, I'm going to do the action and the sport thing like I want to do, so because that's somehow or other that's important to me. And where the inspiration came was the Sports Illustrated Olympic issues. And the camera ads. It's everything, man. In the 70s, you know, this started from the 76 summer games, which were in Montreal, right? So there was a Canadian connection. That's where I started seeing the camera ads, and then 80 and then 84, the LA games. And then, you know, it's just, there are all of these wonderful Sports Illustrated magazines and some of the stories you heard about the photographers shooting them. And I met Bill Epridge and Neil Leifer at
Walter
the Calgary
Yost?
Olympics. No, not Walter Yost. No, I never did meet
I met
him.
I
I like Walter Yost because he seems kind of defeatist, doesn't he? He's
really?
Like, I didn't. Anyway. We can talk about those guys later. But I got to meet a couple of these guys. And so the sports photography somehow holds some interest in me. So I still like to shoot it, but there's this arty part of me. Anyway, so the lesson I learned was you can kind of have your cake and eat it too a little bit. I do definitely think when I'm shooting with the long lens that I'm doing some editorial work or something for a magazine is what it seems like. I gotta produce something. And then at night when I'm walking around and I'm not shooting the actual competition, then I can go back to my street ethos and you can work in the different modes. And I never really made that connection, made that thought process until after I came back and I looked at the pictures.
Really?
I'm like, yes,
that's really interesting.
think I could do that.
But had you ever had that opportunity where you were doing two different camera styles? I mean, so you had your Canons, but you know, you weren't. Doesn't sound like you were doing that with your Canon cameras. And
no, with the Canon stuff, that was all the build up to the book. So I was definitely. It was a hybrid of arty. I called it arty action, right? My pictures in the book, I'm trying to make it.
Oh, okay.
They're specific. Those pictures were taken specifically to be put in a book. This one, I'm just shooting like they should be in a magazine or something, or just for my own. Did I capture the moment? Did I make it interesting? Is the structure of the image interesting, and so on?
You know, you're making a good case to have multiple cameras.
Yeah, and that's why it was so acute, or whatever you want to call it. Like, why it was so in my consciousness was I did have this new gear. It was a distraction. I was learning how to use it. I was having some positive results, and in my mind thinking that I wasn't putting enough effort in the back of my mind to this arty stuff that I like to do. And as it turned out, I really needn't have worried. That's an argument for you to just put yourself in that state of flow, because there's a lot of things happened on that weekend where I took myself out of the flow. I had the camera kind of jam on me because I didn't upgrade the firmware, and so there was a kind of a bad interaction where it locked. I got a red light, so I went back to our trailer and I powered it off and took the lens off, powered it on, got it going again, and then came back, and I was fine. It was just one little hiccup. But it kind of took me out of the flow.
Right.
So there was that. And then there was me kind of this low grade worry about, was I going to capture everything? I mean, yeah, the rodeo does happen over 3 days, but you know, the individual competitions, they're they're there for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, and then they're gone, right? So if you didn't get what you wanted and you hope the weather's going to work out the next day, you do, it's like anything else in life. You try and capture what's actually there. And that way it's a little bit like a wedding, but when they're 84 barrel racers, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get something. Over the weekend, there was quite a few. No, I didn't really concentrate on the barrel racers till the last day. There was maybe 20 of them. And so that's where the Sunday, that's where I got the good picture of the black and white picture that was more arty.
The woman who's the woman who's riding
the horse around the barrel. Yeah,
around the barrel. That's a great picture.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so sorry, I'm going to go sideways again a little bit here, but again, when your pictures pop up in a timeline, and it's not Instagram, but like maybe I think you put them on Facebook.
Put them on Vero too.
Yeah, and I'm not scanning these things so much anymore, but like I will see a picture before I read the name, just because the way you scroll.
Yeah.
And even though I know probably in the back of my mind, I know it's you because of the subject matter. There's something very distinct about the way you process the image that is like a signature style, which is really wonderful to notice. Like that your picture says your name before I actually have to look at your name.
Right. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So keep doing that because actually there's no doubt you're going to keep doing it because I know this with all your black and white pictures. But that's
particularly
what it is,
the rodeo pictures, because I developed a workflow that was specific. I can share a little bit about that. So at the Calgary Stampede, when you win an event, and it's like, I don't know, a $50,000 or $100,000 check, you get it, but you also get a bronze statue that is a depiction of your event. So if it's a saddle bronc ride, it's a actual bronze horse with a rider on it, caught in a arty position, and it's Western art, but it's polished bronze. So if you go back and you look at my pictures, I process the color channels in such a way to make the horse look a bit like it's made out of metal. That's part of my
really
shtick. Yeah. So there's
do you have a quick
a super
tip about
reality.
how that can be done, or do you not want to give that up? But generically, I don't know if you can. I mean,
generically, it's manipulation of the orange and yellow color channels and dehaze.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, now that you say that about the bronzing, I see that in a lot of your other pictures too. Like there's some kind of sheenishness to it, and it's not overdone at all. The reason why I notice it because it's in your street photography as well sometimes in some of the stuff. So it's not just the horse that you're getting that bronzy look to. I mean, you might not be doing the exact same thing.
I think that workflow came from the working on the book, though.
Okay.
I think if you look at my street pictures before the book and then after, I think it was really developed during that.
Was that just experimentation on your part?
Yeah.
Really?
I wanted to make it look better than it. I wanted to make it look not supernatural, but and this is where the conversation with Jeffrey was really good, because his images were not just discovery. Like I said, they were creations. They weren't just discoveries. And that was what I discovered in that workflow was, I think of, it's not just a straight shot. When we had the dark room, we did whatever we could to make the picture look good. If that meant dodging and burning, or meant adjusting the contrast, or doing whatever. So when I'm doing these arty sport rodeo pictures, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not just taking a picture that's a straight ahead image of what happened on the day in the moment, but I'm also giving it some tweaks so that it looks like a picture I would shoot that has a emotional depth to it that I can take away from that moment, that's closer to what I feel about what I'm seeing when I'm shooting. Does that make sense? It's a lot of words.
It makes sense. And actually you're I'm just aware of our time here, but I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
And this is for my This is for my students, I guess, in a way, because you'd actually be a good person to have to talk about this. But I always try to instill, at least in the basic photography classes, and even in the smartphone photography class, even in the street, like all my classes, about processing the picture, like about this final step, and to try to instill a little wisdom about processing. Often I can't show them processing in the class because there's not enough time. Right. And the best I can do sometimes is show them, like, well, you think about processing a picture, this is what a before and after looks like, you know? So I have a shot of a horned owl in Greenwood, and then I process it, and you can see the difference. If you had to explain in a short time to someone who's new about processing in sort of the way you're talking about, you're doing it for yourself, what would you say to them about it being like so integral to the process of the creative, to the creation of an image?
Well, I can't really speak to the actual workflow because that's up to you. I mean, I can show you what I do.
Yeah.
But in terms of what processing does for me and what it did for me when I was in my 20s, like trying to get good, was it takes the image from a representation of what you shot to a feeling and an emotional aspect that is you, that comes out of the image. So it becomes yours. It doesn't become this thing you picked out. It's like, the metaphor of the clay, right? It's just, I can just give you the clay and hand it to you, and that's what it is. But you got to put some creative energy into creating something with it. Or Ansel Adams' performance of the score, right? If the negative is the score, right, the print is the performance, right? It's the there needs to be an emotional depth, and that in my street pictures I don't think have that. My sport pictures, or particularly my sport art pictures, the rodeo stuff, there's an emotional component, because even though I'm not a cowboy, I wouldn't even know. I don't know the last time I was on a horse, I was maybe like 8.
Must have been a cute picture.
Sorry. I doubt it. I don't like hats. But there's a connection to my family and my father and all this kind of stuff. I'm trying to do right by these people and these competitors, I guess. And the speed and the grace and the violence of it, I want to depict in an emotional manner. And, you could say there are tricks that I make the horses look like bronze, but I think there's something, that the sum is greater than the parts, or whatever. I don't know that I don't know if that answered your question.
Great.
It's to turn it into something that's yours.
Yeah.
And you won't know what that is until you start tweaking. And that's another thing I would say. If it's your thing to just take the saturation dial and move it all the way over, and that turned your crank, that's you, right? And that's what some people do. And it was a movement for a while, and then we got tired of it. But I mean, there are things you can do. There are start playing with the controls. Make it yours.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the part that I'd like to instill on them, to make it yours. Because then I say, you don't have to always take what the camera gives you, but the way I'm hearing you interpret that is that it's, it can be yours. Maybe if you're looking at it and you're happy with it from the camera, then you've made that explicit choice. Like, right, that's mine. Yeah. But if not, then it's really the camera. The camera did the work in a sense. It's a little, oversimplifying it, but the camera did the sense, and now it's in your hands. Right now, it's the camera gave birth to it. So now it's time for you to grow the child, as it were. Right. So, all right, thank you. I'm going to replay this for myself because I want to incorporate that. So, any final things about the?
No, there's just one other thing, sort of semi-related. When we were having we have a supper meal. We had dinner in this like beer garden area, and we met these 3 young people that were working on a ranch that was an hour away, a very remote area of the province. They were from New Zealand, and they were just taking in all this Canadian Western, whatever, right? And they were horse people. They did work with horses in their own country, and they came and they were going to work for a woman who has a ranch, and they're going to work for 4 months, and they were going to travel the world after that. So their beginning of their adventure was to work on a working horse ranch. So all the kind of planets lined up, and we have friends who are sponsors of the rodeo, and they got special seating up on a flatbed so they could watch the chuck wagon races and the chariot races. So they're elevated above the track so they could see, and it was fantastic. So they were hosted there, and I had it was just a great vibe with them, with these young people and us cranky campers, and so I said, I'm going to put together an album on Smug Mug for you guys, and I'll send you the link, and I want it to be something for you to remember us by. And then I was thinking, I was concentrating on sports in this. There's going to be a ton of really cool sport pictures that didn't really make the cut as my fancy art, but they would certainly be good enough to show. So I don't know, I had 20 or so images that I put together, including the arty ones, if they were interested in those. And then the group pictures of them standing beside the semi truck with the ad with the phone number, with the waste management company on it. It was all like it was all very authentic. And it was like, Ward, you weren't watching the background. And yes, I was, because I wanted like, this is authentic. So, I sent that to them, and they were very appreciative. So, and it was like, it was aside from my selfish artistic intentions to create these images, in that I could create these, if you want to call them gifts, of the stuff that I've done that serves another purpose. It's like, here's some pictures that you guys can have, that's a memory of this Western life, that I'm sure that they were touched by it. So, and that made me feel good. That there was another purpose for my images other than me just trying to hammer away at Lightroom and then pushing them out one at a time on social media and waiting for those people to love me. It was not that. It was like, well, that's not like that, but you know what I mean?
Well, maybe it is.
Well, maybe it is.
You said it. No, I'm saying you said it, so it must be some reality in that.
It's somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. How can you do that more often? And that's not a question to answer now, but to like, instead of the social media, like new, push, to do a version of what you're talking about, like the connection with these people and the whole thing. I really like how this story went from the equipment to where you just talked about what the final result was.
Yeah, it was big. I think there's some big lessons for me, which I'm still thinking about. Like, some of these ideas and I call them epiphanies, came just in these last couple of weeks. And I did express before the show started that I'm kind of thankful that we waited as long as we did, because I had some more thinking to do about it.
Yeah. So, do you write the stuff down? I mean, how do you remember your epiphanies? Or you just like remember them and how do you keep track of
looking at the images, I guess. I don't.
Oh, so that's going to trigger.
So those, yeah. And I do like my Flickr stream is sort of my backup of my my JPEG save folder. So, I can go back and review that. I just go back and review that, and then I'll maybe, that picture didn't work, I'll take it out or whatever. It's where I kind of ruminate, and then I will post to Instagram and Vero the ones that are a little bit better that I think might generate some interest.
I like how you post stuff too, because you are not like rushing home generally. I've noticed you will put stuff up sometimes quick, but you will say it's not processed, but you'll share that with us in the Unusual Collective.
Those are early edits, I call them.
Yeah, but I noticed that you keep reserved and then you sort of dole out over time, so I can see that you're spending time thinking about the images and not in a rush to get stuff out. And that's also, geez, I wish I could have, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if this is gonna be possible, but maybe one day I could have you as like a virtual guest in one of my classes to explain some of this stuff, or just to sort of, so that anyway, I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
Well,
because I really like your
discuss offline. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know how we can do that. It's just there's some part of this that I don't think I was in this position either before I met you. I mean, I'm coming from commercial photography, so I'm not really thinking about the pictures in the same way. And I in a sense, I've sort of started learning again about photography. Maybe not exactly, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
to get out of a commercial sense of, and I'm still stuck in that sometimes. It still creeps in. Like, I'm doing a vertical picture. I'm like, well, how's that going to look as a cover? I'm like, no, it's not. No.
Well, I have
it's not
some
a cover.
biases like that too, but
yeah, but
I think for me, it was like being a kid and knowing that the prints were sort of expensive, and the prints kind of became precious things.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I appreciate about other photographers who do gold gilding, or they put it in a fancy frame, or they do something, they turn their images, or the way they post process them, they turn them into precious objects. There are a couple of guys in Calgary specifically that I'm thinking of that do that. And it's not just that they take this cool picture, but they turn it into an art object. And I thought when I was a kid and I held these prints, and like, this is so cool. I think there's a part of that that's still in me that wants to post this digital file as something that has some intrinsic value. Like, there's not quite a precious thing in the way these other guys do it, but something that has some kind of value. And that's why I like to maybe post them one at a time. And we're getting into my subconscious here. Maybe we should stop.
Yeah. You can already hear they're coming after you.
They're coming after. Yes, that's my ride. Yeah, that's right. They're all dressed in white.
We're gonna
How
be
far
going
is
to
Bellevue from your place?
Wow, even Bellevue's got a international reputation.
It was in all the comedies. It's Bellevue.
It's on the,
we'll send, you know what it is? Barney Miller. That's what it is.
Barney Miller. I knew you were going to say Barney Miller.
I used to stay up with my mom late on Saturday night and watch Barney Miller. Yeah,
I'm going to send you to the funny farm.
That's right.
Yeah, that's not very PC these days, I think. But, it's late tonight. I don't care. Yeah, funny farm. We come from a different generation where they used to say funny farm. The
Not Hatch. That's my favorite.
The padded room. So. And actually, they did have padded rooms. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. I think we've covered a lot. I didn't expect this conversation to go like this, so I'm really happy.
Good. Me too.
Yeah, it was great talking to you like this. So, where are they finding you in the world these days?
Let's see. Where are they finding me? I got to find where they can find me first.
I don't know where they're finding me. So.
They're finding me.
Finding me at Bellevue.
They're finding me. You're finding me on Vero and Twitter /X at W Rosin Photo. That's at WROSIN Photo. On Instagram, I'm Ward Rosin Fine Art. On Facebook, you can find me at Ward Rosin Photo. I have a website that desperately needs some attention, but my blog post is there. It's at rosin.ca, rosin.ca. And our unofficial sponsor is Ornis Photo, where I sell 7 Artisans lenses and lens adapters of various types, mostly for Fuji X and Sony E mount. What about you, my friend?
Well, I was using your macro lens that you sold me. For something.
That's 60. That's a weird little bird. I kind of like that lens.
Yeah, with that weird little extension tube that sticks out. It kind of looks like it gets noticed. It gets noticed. Where am I? Did you ask?
I asked, where are you? Where
am I? I'm right here, and you're there, but I'm also on Vero at AM Rosario, Instagram AM Rosario Photo. My website, also in need of desperation cleanup, is amrosario.com, but I'll add my Facebook. My Facebook is Rosario Photo. Our website is streetshots.photography, which also needs updating. And but subscribe to our Substack newsletter. We've been getting a lot of subscriptions lately from, I said this last time and I'll say it again, I've been getting, little drips and drabs from recommendation from Barry and X, our brother podcaster in the Candid Frame. So he
very cool
recommended. Yeah. So anyway, subscribe to our newsletter. I think I got one coming out soon. I feel it coming out. streetshots.substack.com, and leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/streetshots. And if you want to buy us a coffee, help support the show, buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario. And the last thing I wanted to say, which I forgot to put before this, was in the way that Jeffrey sent us his book and then we had him on the show. I would like to open this up to listeners. If you've got a book or a zine or something, if you're up to sending a website, send it to us, and we'd like to look at it. And I'm really into this idea of people who are listening to our show to talk to them. Like, I would love to give back in that. So in the way that Jeffrey is a listener, and then we had him on the show. If anybody's up for that, drop us a line and, let us see your pictures, and we'd love to have you on and talk to, we're not just about, ourselves. So anyway, thank you. And Ward, thank you for tonight. It was great to talk to you for tonight.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, I'm glad we start off earlier too these days, because I am wired now. I don't have to go to sleep right now. But yeah, and I will let you go, and I'll let everybody else go. So
all right,
we'll see you in a couple of weeks, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us, and Ward, have a good night.
You too. Good night. We'll see you.